What's up, everybody? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and of course, we're talking about Slaughter to Prevail, Viking, and we're doing something cool, by the way. So earlier today, I put up a poll on the Cardivox Academy community section on YouTube, and I said, yo, Alex Terrible himself put up a one-take live whatever vocal playthrough of Viking. Which one should I do? And I got a couple people who said do both, and I said, all right, I will. I'll do both. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the music video version first, and then we're going to do the live take version first, or second, Jesus. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see how different they are, how similar they are. This is more so to see if he does anything differently, and also to see, things like mouth shapes and embouchure and, the way he holds his jaw. And also just to see, this is also kind of for all of you to show you like how things like an EQ or delay or reverb, for those of you who are, budding vocalists who have not spent a lot of time in a studio, can see how much like just a little bit of standard production. By the way, everybody uses standard production on their voice. It's just a thing, affects the voice. So that's why we're going to do both. There's some value here. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark. I'm a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. We released an album called Liminal Ride a while ago. It doesn't sound like Slaughter to Prevail at all, but if you like metal, you might like it. So check it out. And then beyond that, I myself am a vocal coach. I specialize in harsh vocal noises. I give the occasional like clean singing lesson, mostly just the fundamentals. But my main focus is teaching people how to do stuff, like or safely and efficiently, so they can make cool music and cool sounds that they enjoy. You can find out more information about lessons and also our super cool false chord e-course. By the way, we have an e-course that can be accessed entirely online, also available on cardivoxacademy.com, that shows you the basic start, the beginning, the foundational sound behind a lot of things. That sound I made. You can approach both of those sounds with a false chord bass, a false chord springboard, and this teaches you how to do it very, very well. We'll talk more about it throughout the course of the video, but that's a lot of fun. Check it out. A lot of people have gotten it so far. We're getting a lot of good feedback on it. A lot of people saying it's pretty helpful. So that's cool. But beyond that, you're probably like, hey, Wish.com, Zach Galifianakis, shut up and listen to Viking. All right, here's Viking, Slaughter to Prevail. Let's go.
Язык меча, что ж, так прольется кровь. Мой язык бескостный станет железом, чтобы говорить. Понимаешь только язык меча, что ж.
Okay, so we're almost a minute in, so let's go ahead and talk about a couple things. By the way, if you're an intro skipper, which I am too, like, listen, I say that, there's not any hate in that name. A lot of us skip intros, I skip intros. I do a lot of vocal analysis, so if you're like, stop pausing and just listen to it, like, you can access Spotify by yourself at home, right? Don't treat my channel like Spotify. That's not what I do here. So we're gonna pause here. We're gonna talk about some vocal techniques. So, I think that once Demolisher came out, right, I think Slaughter to Prevail found a pretty good structure for their songs, right? They figured out that deep rumbly voice really grabs people, so why not put it at the beginning of your song? I think that that's a very smart business move, right? And it sounds cool as well. This is really interesting. The intro to the song is really cool because we have a couple layers, right? Now, I want to listen to it again, but I'll probably save it for maybe when we do the one take at the second half of this video. But we heard a couple different things. Like, it was all very, very much a narrative style, right? So he's using this as a speaking, chanting voice. And it was interesting because I heard both like that typical like false chord roaring sound in there, right? But I also heard a little bit more of like either like an arytenoidal or like an epiglottal flap. And you can hear that because the distortion tends to be a lot slower, right? The distortion tends to go gluk, 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 versus, and with that It sounds really low and rumbly like that. And I actually heard that a little bit more forward. Like when people talk about Alex, they talk a lot about false chord vocals. And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of what he does is false chord based. But also, you know, as with many deathcore and death metal vocalists, there's a lot more nuance to his voice than that. And he's not just using one distortion method all the way through. And those layers I heard at the beginning were very cool during that chanting part, right? And basically what this comes from, right? This, you know, going from this more false chord like that traditional false chord sound to something a little bit more compressed like those sounds. That's going to come from a little bit of muscle activation above the vocal cords. A lot of people would term this as compression. I think that's a decent way to use the word, right? I've used it that way before, but we're bringing in those tissues, we're bringing in those cartilages a little bit, creating a little bit of a narrowing of the airway, and that causes us to distort very, very differently. Then we heard a lot of really good, really awesome mid vocals, a lot of like very fast paced mid screams. And this is something that Alex does really, really well. A lot of people, when they try to get this roaring tone down, what they'll do is they'll start screaming harder and just shoving more air through their vocal tract, right? This sometimes can yield results, right? Like I'm not going to be like, no, it never works, but it's going to gas you out so fast, right? And I've never seen Slaughter To Prevail live. At least I don't think I have. But yeah, I would probably remember. But, you know, from what I've seen of clips of him live, he doesn't gas out. He doesn't run out. So a lot of this actually is more about placement of the voice, right? Where are we aiming our voice? Where are we feeling those vibrations rolling around? And then a controlling of the airflow, a steady, strong, but not over projected airflow, right? Now, I do not have a voice like Alex's. So when I give these examples, I'm not going to sound like him. Alex and I have very different vocals, very different vocal tracks. But a good example is if I wanted to do like a really powerful like high scream. A high scream is a good. Actually, let's do a low because it's quieter. If I wanted to do like a really powerful, more driving mid vocal, like a for that, am I pushing a little harder? Of course, but it's from here and it's not nearly as much as a lot of people think that they need. So if you're trying to get more of a roar, doing something like he's doing, which is placing the voice up here, you know, up here in the top of the face, that sound, right? And then dropping the jaw a little bit down and back and really thinking about aiming the voice this way is going to be a good way to do it. A really good breathing exercise for that, well, for a lot of breathing, is called Farinelli breathing. I go over it with a lot of my students. But yeah, I'm going to go back a little bit so you can hear some of what I'm talking about, but it's not about being as loud as you can. It's about being as steady and well-placed as you can be. And volume tends to come with that as a happy byproduct. Here we go. I'll go back to like, yeah, this looks good. He looks pissed there, so this will work. Too far. Oh, well. All right. If you just everybody be quiet. Let's hear that again. That's interesting. That is a very interesting sound. You know, oftentimes when we do metal vocals, like one thing that's getting very, very popular is adding like a chortly sound, some sort of like low, steady rumble. Sometimes you can do that with your soft palate, right? I'm not very good at it. I am not actually very good at rattling my soft palate like that at all. If I sat down and really tried to do it, I probably could figure it out. But the reason I'm mentioning this is on TikTok, I saw a video, a Screamy Mimi video where he was talking about rattling the soft palate. I don't know if he was talking about Viking. That's just the first thing that comes to mind. I actually think, and some of y'all might disagree with me, I think that this is just a tongue roll with a low vocal. Now, a tongue roll with a low vocal can be very difficult to do, actually, because part of the way that we make our voice low is by creating more space in the mouth. But if you're out there and you can roll your tongue, not everybody can. But if I roll my tongue and then I drop my jaw, the the tongue roll can't really exist very well anymore. Maybe if you speak a language where there are a lot of tongue rolls, you could do that because you're really proficient. But me, I only speak English, and the variety of English that I speak has no rolled R's. And when he did that, he had like a very closed jaw snarl, look right here. I've actually never, unless I've done it here on the channel, I don't remember doing it. Maybe I did it for the Left to Suffer video. I've never tried to roll my R on a low. That would be really hard. With on high vocals, it's quite simple. And that makes me think maybe this isn't a tongue roll, but I'm going to stick with my gut here. The way that it's producing, the way that the air is moving through that space, to me it sounds like a versus like a palatal or even epiglottal sound. I'm sticking with it. I could be wrong. That's the risk you take with first time when you react to songs and it's the first time you've heard it. But I will say that shape of mouth and that jaw position, I don't know. That's making me think that it's like a. I'm not going to embarrass. You know what? I'll embarrass myself. What do I care? No, not me. Not today. Let's keep going. Little necrophagist in that riff, little bit of advanced corpse tumor. I'm not saying they ripped it off. I'm saying they're kind of similar. That I'm not calling anybody out. So one thing I love about Alex's voice and that I think sets him apart, because in the landscape of metal vocals, things can sound very samey, right? Things can sound very samey, and Alex doesn't sound samey to me at all. Maybe that's a critique that's made of him by some people. I haven't seen or read or heard it, but to me, Alex has a very distinct sound, and it's a very distinct echo, a very distinct resonance to his voice. That's interesting to me because, again, if we want to put a little bit of extra echo into our voice, that's not actually that hard to do, right? A lot of people will come to me and they'll say, Mark, I want to learn tunnel throats. And I'm like, okay, well, when we're done with that, as long as you can make a scream, if you can go like, or you can, it's actually not that hard to add those secondary resonance chambers to your voice, right? If you can scream already. But the thing that really kind of, and this is making me even more excited to watch the live one take after this, the thing that interests me is that I don't see his tongue doing stuff that usually creates those secondary resonance chambers, right? For example, if I'm going to do something like this, I have to either turn my tongue this way. This is super common. A lot of people on the deathcore subreddit, screaming subreddit are probably talking about this. Not about me, about this technique. Or sometimes I'll turn my tongue sideways. But I see him, his tongue sits on his bottom teeth, or right at his bottom teeth. Makes me think he might be doing something with the back. The only other person I know who can know of for sure that can create this secondary resonance space with the back of their tongue is Dickie Allen. When I had him on for a reaction to, I think it was Blasphemian. This was like 2 years ago, so I could be wrong. He was talking about how he was making a lot of his like tunnel throat sound with the back of his tongue. And that's why I give the quote unquote, because it's like, does it count as a tunnel throat? If you're, listen, I don't care about metal vocal terminology very much. So if it is, it isn't, I don't know. The answer will change in a week. But I see him, and usually when I hear these tunnel placements, I don't associate them with this. I associate them with this, or, right? And so hearing him have just like a subtle tunnel, like a subtle secondary resonance chamber, it's interesting. And I would speculate, but we're gonna do the live one take. So we'll just check it out there. But that's one of the things about his voice that's very distinctly Alex. Pair that with the jumping around from color to color, right? He will sometimes go from like a very low, like a low rich color. And then other times he'll go into more of like a type of color, right? And both of those sound really, really good. And the way he slides between them is just, it's very buttery. It's interesting that it's buttery and yet hits like a ton of concrete at the same time. Let's keep going.
Понимаешь только язык меча, что ж?
That's a really good spot for us to talk. Ooh, that is tasty. Also that riff, that kind of black metal-y-ish riff, that's a Mark riff. I love that riff. Also, if anybody can read Russian, what did her tattoo say? I don't know what it said. Probably says Cardivox sucks. Just kidding. So yeah, let's find that space. There's a reason I want to talk about this. Okay. 1 second. Let's find it. Yeah, let the blade do the talking, so my tongue something. I don't know. So this is a really good example of a good false chord target sound for people who are just learning, right? Now, what do I mean by this, right? Oftentimes when we're learning false chord, one of the things that can be trickiest is turning the bass sound into an actual scream. Now, what I mean by this, and a lot of people run into this with Fry as well, we'll talk about false chord here. What I mean by this is it's not usually that difficult to make I just did it. Not even thinking about it. To make the baseline false chord sound. And this is because we're using tissues in our vocal anatomy that we have, evolved over millions and millions of years to keep us from choking, right? When we swallow, our epiglottis and all these supraglottal tissues, they close over the airway so that stuff slides back into the esophagus versus down through the vocal tract into the trachea. And then our lungs are full of, chicken nuggies and chalky milk and we die, right? So that's what these tissues are for. So, getting this baseline sound, there are different ways to do it, right? And I go over a lot of these different ways in my e-course online. Check it out, cardivoxacademy.com if you want to start your false chord journey. Or if you've been doing it for a long time and you just want to revisit your foundation, right? This sound here, that's it. If you can do that, I guarantee you can do false chords, right? And so sometimes I'll have a student and we'll get about here, and then turning that into a scream is very, very challenging for them, right? I'd love to sit here and tell you that everybody gets their false chord scream in 90 minutes, but that ain't life, right? Some people, they have to work a little bit harder, but let me tell you that victory is extra sweet when they get there, right? So one method, not the only method, but one method of turning this into a scream is to say in your mind, I'm not screaming. I'm not doing metal vocals. I'm narrating. I'm speaking. And my general method of teaching false chord tends to be to start with a pitchless false chord first. It's not the only way. It's the way that I prefer to do it for many reasons that I won't get into here. But, other people may not do it that way, or they may start a different way. And that's fine. That's okay, right? It's very easy to have a method and then think that your method is the only one. My method is one of many, and it may not be the best for you, but for a lot of people, it does help out. So in this area, we're actually going to let some of that pitch through and we're going to start talking. I like to kind of think of this as like a dog pacing back and forth on the other side of a gate, right? And so like sometimes my students and I will literally like stand at the camera and like pace back and forth and get into character. Without context, people would be like, what the hell's going on? But we have like the student has this, right? They can do this. And I'm going to say, okay, I want you to boof a little bit, not woof, not rough. And this isn't the old school false chord exercise with dog barking. Oh, that's great too. It's this. See, I'm letting my vocal cords through. Now let's go ahead and let's put a little bit of that false chord in there. I'm getting projection, right? And by this time, the student knows where they should feel the distortion. They understand that, right? So they're not putting it all here. Now we're just going to hold on to that so that boof turns into more of a woof, right? Woof, 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 woof. Let the blade do the talking right there. And so like, at this point, have they found the coolest false chord in the world? No, absolutely not. But are they creating projected false chord distortion in a way that's healthy and exciting, right? You know, let the playing do the talking. I'm doing false chord vocals. Right? Yes, that they are doing, and that you can do as well. And then that over time can turn into let the playing do. Right? And it can turn into all those things after, and it's going to take some years, okay? And that's basically the voice that he was in right there. And another reason I want to point this out as well is that sometimes we think that the fundamental techniques are just things to get past, right? But so many of my favorite vocalists, right? Two of my favorite vocalists right now, my favorite of all time is always going to be Travis Ryan and probably Johnny Davey. But two that I've been really into recently are Alex Tan. I talk about him a lot on the channel, Black Tongue. And Gareth Mason, Slice the Cake. They do a lot of foundational stuff. And here we have one of the biggest... where do I point? I'm an idiot. One of the biggest names in vocals doing a very fundamental, very foundational false chord technique and making it sound sick as hell. Let's keep going. That was another great moment. Mark, don't pause so much. Get over it. Listen to him use that voice. And then what a great screenshot. I got to remember that because that's good for the thumbnail. That's amazing. Listen to how he uses that voice to transition into a scream. So you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. Granted, he's doing it masterfully well, but here we go. That's really interesting because if we watch the music video, the embouchure, the mouth shape that he's using is very much a mid roar, and the dominant vocal take in the song is a low, right? We hear like this, and his mouth is doing this, ah. Now that's not me saying anything's fake. People like to say that too much. But that's me saying, you know, it's interesting how the low is mixed more forward, but maybe he performs the mid live. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Язык меча, что прольется кровь, так прольется кровь. Мой язык бескостной стали, железо стали говорить, чтобы говорить. Понимаешь только язык меча, что ж.
I think it's a tongue roll. I think it's a tongue roll because every time I'm hearing the r now, it then opens up to a vowel, ra. Like, okay, I don't know. I don't speak any Russian. I had one friend who was Russian when I worked at PayPal, and she used to, she had a nickname for me because she thought I ate like a pig. So her nickname for me was Gryaznya Svinya, filthy pig. And I don't know what he's saying, but grya. It sounds like, especially there in one spot, it sounds like he said grya, right? So maybe, I mean, we're going to find out, but maybe. Let's go back a little bit. I obviously clearly paused before a big moment, and you're all welcome. What about that? How about that pongy snare? Pong. I love it. Yeah, that is nutso. That is nutso. You know, that low resonance he gets, that's just that low resonance he gets is so amazing. I love it. Even, you know, if I hear, you know, a song like I love it every time I hear it, right? And I would love to get this guy on the channel and really pick his brain, but I've just kind of accepted that that's probably never going to happen. If you think Alex should hop onto Cardivox Academy, I don't know. I won't tell you to send him a message because then he'll hate us even more. He'll be like, God, can you stop sending people after me? So don't do that, but maybe leave a comment or something. If you'd like to see Alex on the channel, leave a comment. Don't message him on Instagram. Leave a comment. That's a little bit more respectful of his personal space. But then maybe he can see that, hey, this is something that people would love to see, and I would love to do as well, because that low resonance is like I understand how low resonance is created. I probably shouldn't be teaching people how to do vocals if I don't know how to create a good low scream, but he has such a roundedness with such an intense airflow that sounds just like a chasm coming out of hell that I would love to pick his brain on, right? And just have fun talking about. Now, if we're going to talk about low vocals, right? Again, my voice is going to sound different than his. But if we're going to talk about low vocals, generally speaking, what we want to do is we want to create more space in the mouth. More, if we're talking about these less true chord controlled vocals, we want to be creating more space in the mouth. And there are a lot of ways we can do that, right? Drop our jaw, pucker our lips, curl our tongue, do all three. And then increasing our airflow can actually pitch us down a little bit more as well. The fact that sometimes he gets so low with an shaped mouth, that's something to where I'm like, like I can hear some pretty deep gutturals and but do you hear how to achieve that I'm much more compressed? I'm utilizing a if I do the more traditional false chord sound, right? I'm not getting that low. That ain't, for me personally, and for a lot of people I know, that ain't happening. So I think that's another reason why Alex's voice is so iconic, because he does things that sound counterintuitive to how it should work, at least to me, you know, and that's kind of the mystery. That's kind of the fun. Anyway, okay, so let's go ahead. Let's switch over to the live one take, and let's see what we can find. Let's see what we can dig into with the mouth shape and with everything like that. And again, if you would like to start your false chord journey, you know, whether or not you're at the space where you're just barely able to do this, or if you're somebody who's been doing false chord for 15 years, but it just doesn't quite feel right, something's a little painful, something's a little bit scratchy, check out cardivoxacademy.com. It is there. A lot of people have been letting us know, hey, I got the e-course. It's really helping me out. So it won't be for everybody, but maybe it's for you. And that's really cool. It's been helping a lot of people out. And I do also give one-on-one lessons. I am full to the absolute brim. And there is a waiting list, but you can get on that waiting list if you want to and practice the e-course in the meantime. But let's go ahead and let's switch over to the live one take. Wow, Mark, how did you do that so fast? It's almost like editing is magic. I'm really excited too, because there's a lot of stuff in this song where I was like, man, this is kind of throwing me for a little bit of a loop, or, you know, I'd love to get a better idea. And here he's going to do it himself in high definition, no less. All right, let's, I'm gonna stop talking. Here we go. Pre-show gargle. Pre-show gargle. There's that dog. There's a. Okay, actually, that's really interesting. We can talk about that real quick. Hold on. I do hear some vocal cord in there, and I do hear some dropped larynx. Now, I generally, if you've seen this channel before, I generally advise people not to drive their screams with their larynx. Don't like shove your larynx down. It's all right if it's going to move a little bit, right? And usually when I'm starting out a brand new student, we try to rely on this as little as possible. But listen, if you've been doing this for a very long time and you want to drop your larynx a little bit, you can totally get away with that. You can totally get away with that, right? So I heard like a what pitch was he on? It's hard to match. But yeah, I hear a so that's part of what's going on as well. All right, let's give this one.
Понимаешь только язык меча. Что ж, так прольется кровь. Так прольется кровь. Мой язык безвкусный станет железом, чтобы говорить. Чтобы говорить. Понимаешь только язык меча. Что ж.
Yeah, so already we can hear and we can see some really cool things, right? Yeah, this is great. For anybody who watches this whole video, especially if you're a new vocalist, this is a really good thing for you to be watching right now, because this is a great example of how mouth shape and jaw and tongue position can really aid our screams very, very well. I'm hearing a little bit of like nasal in there. Right? I'm hearing some of that going on. And yeah, the distortion is super clean. I'm gonna since, you know, we're at this as of the recording with 36 minutes, I'm going to try to only jump in if I feel like there's something like really valuable to say. I'll try not to pause quite as much as the first one. But yeah, this is that down and back, that relaxed, because you know, when we open our jaw doesn't really open straight down. It kind of opens down and back. And so that it can be a really good way to aim our distortion. Anyways, let's keep going. Tongue roll all day. I was right. You can actually see him rolling his tongue in this video. And it's also really cool how he rolls the tongue and then eases off and then goes into what sounds like a slightly more compressed vocal. That's pretty cool coordination, actually. That's impressive to me. Yo, I already like this version better, actually, than the music video. In that section where he's going back and forth, you can hear a little bit more of his true voice. You can hear a little bit of that, and that actually sounds really cool. I like this version a lot better than the music video was awesome. The mix was great, but I think this sounds cool. There is some like reverb and stuff on his voice. Who cares? That's what you do. Right? That's what you do. But yeah, this is cool. Anyways, let's keep going. This is really neat.
Понимаешь только язык меча. Что ж, да, я understand. We're on the same road. You notice that I am from the same flesh. I understand that we're on the same road. You notice that we're so disco, we're so dead.
So one thing that can be really valuable, and I want to talk about it here. Now, we as learners, right, would do it slightly differently than somebody who's been doing it forever. But you know, on my channel, I talk a lot about the value of frontal resonance, masky resonance, right? And that shouldn't be to the detriment of anything that's happening in the back of the vocal tract, right? One of our biggest spaces of resonance is the pharynx, right? And the pharynx is the space in the back of our mouth. And from what I'm seeing in this live take, he's doing even more back there. This is a little bit of speculation on my part, right? That's how this works. When you see something for the first time, you're trying to make your best assessments in real time. But, you know, hearing him get these big resonant sounds, right? With his tongue just here, that's telling me he's opening up his pharynx quite a bit. And I think he's letting himself resonate in his sinuses a little bit as well. I've never really tried to do that in my life. So I'm not going to try to do it here, but there's like this, you can see into his mouth and he's creating just a ton of this space, right? One way that you can practice opening up space in the pharynx, this is really common, right? This is a very common exercise, but you can yawn, right? And then take that yawn and do it without dropping your legs. Ha, ha, ah, ha, ah. And then if you have like a basic false chord growl, you can take your distortion and put it through there, right? So, right? Ha, ha, right? And you get like a pretty decent roaring sound. It's not like, listen, before anybody says it, I know that his voice is big and more rounded than mine. He sounds amazing. But you can create a lot of, this works really well with high vocals too, right? Creating like a ton of in the back of the mouth is really key. So as much as I talk about frontal resonance, I hope that never comes across as you know, that means that you can't open up all that space in the back. You absolutely can, and it can create some really cool sounds as well. Now with a lot of more like tight and low sounds, a lot of the more guttural, like, you know, like a lot of those sounds, that's going to have often a little less space in the back. And we're doing more with the front of our mouth. So nuances, a lot of different ways to color our voice, right? Let's keep going. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I want to know what's going on back there, Alex. Talk to me, man. I want to know what you're doing back there, because like this is, I'll try to remember to blow it up here, but this is interesting because like we have like a very definite bowl in the tongue, right? The tongue is dipped in the middle. The tongue is touching the bottom teeth. If I touch my tongue to my bottom teeth, and I dip my tongue, I can get some cool sounds, but I'm not going to get that like secondary resonance chamber that we associate with like tunnels is the one that's going to make the most sense, right? It's not like the only way to create secondary resonance chambers is with tunnels, right? But like that thick, rounded tone, right? That mouth shape, I wouldn't like if I just saw a picture of it, my brain wouldn't think that. And yet he's been making this sound with that mouth shape for like, what, 10 years, 15 years, 12 years? I don't know how long he's been at it, but he's been at it a long time. I'm pretty sure he's been doing vocals longer than I have. I've been doing them for like 13, 14 years-ish. But like, look at that, like that mouth shape with that resonance production. It's not what I would expect right off the bat. I'll tell you that. The blame to talking, so my tongue became. So yeah, it's got to be pharyngeal, and it's got to be, I don't know. I don't want to say there's got to be because I don't know. Anyway, I could just riff about this for a while, but I think it's awesome, and he sounds great. Like that makes more sense to me. That totally makes sense. Like when we take our mouth and we pucker our lips and we put our tongue more in like a position, you get a lot of really like deep, wide, echoey resonances. So that tracks. I see that and I'm like, the math is mathing, right?
From the same flag.
That almost sounds like a high dropped down to a mid. Now, when I use these terms, by the way, I'm speaking loosely, right? I'm speaking loosely, but that roar sounded almost like the distortion I think of as a high vocal. And I feel like it sounds almost like it's it looks like he's like, did I do it? I'm sorry. Right? It's a funny pause. But that almost sounds like a high that's dropped down into like a mid space. Let me hear it again. Yeah. See, I'm pulling on my cheeks to get more resonant space there. It sounds kind of like that, maybe. It's cool.
Язык меча, что ж, так прольется кровь, так прольется кровь. Мой язык бескостный станет, чтобы говорить, чтобы говорить. Понимаешь только язык меча, что ж, он satisfied primal fear.
Oh, sick. That's cool modulation there. The oftentimes, you know, when we're thinking about our vocals, one thing that can happen with new and experienced vocalists alike is that they will hear something like this and they'll be like, oh, what technique is he using? What technique is happening here versus here? And while I'm not generally a fan of getting into the weeds on terminology, right? I think a better way to judge our vocals are they comfortable? Do they sound good? And does this vocal style allow us some longevity and endurance, right? And then after that, you know, you can take your BuzzFeed quiz over whether it's a false chord or a fry later, right? Like if we're talking about what your relationship with your voice should be, it shouldn't be you slapping a definition on it. It should be, how does this feel in my body? What's my relationship to this feeling? And how well can I control it? So sometimes when people say like, well, what's this technique versus this technique? It tells me when I'm having these conversations that they may be going into it with a slightly improper understanding, because in the metal world, right, not everybody, but much of the time we use technique in metal vocal speak, we're talking about something that is distinctly different enough from other things to warrant its own classification, right? So for example, like a two different techniques, right? Low, ooh, high, yeah, right? Those are different enough to where, yeah, like different technique is worth saying, right? The distortion feels entirely different. I'm doing it as if I'm in a different register, right? One we could call a chest voice. The other one we could call like maybe a heady mix, as far as the placement of where they are. You know, the method of airflow is going to be slightly different, right? Here, and you know, one thing that I run into is sometimes, now people use this term differently, right? But like just minor changes of the articulators, right? Travis Ryan does this all the time. Minor changes of the articulators, the tongue, the lips, the jaw, that rather than just changing vowels, boost different frequencies, right? I'm making it sound a lot more complicated than it is, but just subtle changes to mouth shape when done well can really drive and accentuate a lot of differences in our screams. So, you know, you can have like a high, and then let's say I go, because that's kind of the place in my vocal tract that I put that high through.
That's where I put it through, as if I was talking. I put it through this space right here, right? So I'm going to go,
right? And sometimes people might hear that and say, oh, well, how did you switch from that high to the low? None of that's going on, right? And this is a really good example of what it sounds like and what it looks like. Very, very cool stuff. So let's do that again. Really neat. I just have a thing about spit and mucus, so that's all. If you remember when I covered when I did the To the Hellfire reaction, you can hear all that mucus, and I was just like, I was like pushing through it there. I'm doing the same thing here. It sounds sick though. This is so like this. If I was to talk with Alex in person, this is one of the main things I would think, because when you watch 90% of vocalists, right, a low scream looks like this, and okay, or something like that. A mid scream looks something like this, or ah. Right? A high scream looks right? There are some differences if we're being narrative, right? If we're not singing, we're talking. Like, for example, singing would be like, versus like, underneath the dream in the darkness of the night, right? One is more narrative. So I'm talking about like in this singing mindset, right? But his mids and lows often look the same. And I just think that that's so cool. Like, when, having done metal vocals for a long time and having done a lot of these videos and talked with a lot of vocalists and taught a lot of lessons, it's rare that I'm in a situation where I'm like, I'm kind of like, I understand the foundations of what's happening here, but I feel like to fully understand, I'd need to talk to this person directly. That doesn't happen very often. So when it happens, I'm Twitter-pated, right? I feel like a kid in a candy store, and I can't pick what kind of candy I want, right? But yeah, like look at these. To me, they don't look like they should be this low. And before anybody takes that the wrong way, like, no, he's not pitch shifting. There are plenty of videos of him online doing this just raw into a microphone, and you can hear trees rustling in the background and water running in the background. And even if I don't care, I'm giving this too much time. Listen to how cool he sounds.
Fuck you.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Alex, he's a very difficult man to get a hold of because he's super busy, right? And he's doing a lot of stuff with bigger media outlets than this. But I desperately want to talk to him about his voice. So I'll tell you what, if ever we're in the same place, actually, I'm going to be at Blue Ridge. If ever we're in the same place, I will buy you an extremely fancy dinner. Right? I'll buy you a dinner, and we don't even have to have any cameras turned on. We can, no pressure, just two people talking about vocals. I'll buy you dinner, I'll buy you a drink, and I would love to just pick your brain about your voice, because, am I an instructor of vocals? Yes, but I will also forever be a student of vocals. There's no point where I'm ever going to get on this channel and be like, I've got it all figured out. I know everything. There's no room for me to improve, right? Not the case at all. I hope I can continually learn, and I would love to learn how he gets this deep, rounded. I've heard a lot of people speculate and do really good imitations of his voice, and I'm not against those, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth. I'd like to talk to this guy. So if ever we're in the same city and you want to talk vocals with no pressure of cameras, I'll buy you dinner. And we can talk about it. Anyways, let's finish this out because it's got a couple seconds and he might do something. That guy's got to poop. all that abdominal activation. He's like, I got to get out of here. I got to go. All right, so that was a really long reaction video, but I think it was totally worth it because there's a lot of cool stuff. And by the end of the one take, I was even more impressed than before. So yeah, this was great. This was fun. I should start doing this more often. I really want to start doing this more often, where I do the music video and then the live one take after, because I think that this was a really interesting way to talk about vocals. If you liked that video, you don't need me. Like, listen, if you're here, you know Slaughter To Prevail is, so you don't need me to tell you to go like their video, but go like their video, show them some love, give them those algorithm clicks that they have worked hard for. Thank you to the guys in Slaughter To Prevail for making this video. It was a lot of fun. I want to do this more often. And if you are interested in starting or even continuing, your metal vocal journey, I've taught newbies. I've worked with touring musicians, any and all skill levels. Cardivoxacademy.com for info on one-on-one lessons. and also on the E-course. You know, the E-course is much more focused on the false chord fundamental sound. I'm a big believer in building your house from the ground up, you know, and so I don't think you should be starting with, whistle fry tunnel screams off the back. You can, that's up to you. I ain't gonna start you there. If you're interested in learning the basic foundational sound that will help you later on create sounds like or even stuff, like I did my time. That e-course will absolutely help you out with it. So check it out at cardivoxacademy.com. What time? It's 5:00. It's quitting time around here, folks. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.